Okay guys, welcome to the lecture on the news myth. Here we're going to be exploring different types of information and how we classify different forms of information so that we can use it for maximum profit. Let's get into it. Okay, so we've all been there before where something happens and the market goes skyrocketing or the market goes crashing and it's a big deal and everyone's freaking out or everyone's celebrating and the question is crossing your mind, well, why did this happen? How did this happen? Where did all of this come from? I know, you say to yourself, let's go check the news. And then you start to think about it some more, you're quite interested in the event, and you say to yourself, man, if only I knew that that event was coming, then I would have been able to make a huge amount of money from it, or I would have been able to save my money, or whatever it is. And you think to yourself, well, the news knows what's going on, so I'm going to keep reading the news. Let's look at some more news. Let's keep finding more and more news. News. And you go super deep down the rabbit hole. You'll start asking me questions like, hey Adam, what's the best Twitter accounts to follow for crypto news? What's the best crypto websites to go to for crypto news? What's the best YouTube channels to watch for crypto news? What's the best TV channels to watch for crypto news? And you'll be looking, obsessed with getting as much news as possible. Now I get it. It's understandable. You're trying to express the foundational principles of what we're actually trying to do here into its real form, which is collecting information, getting an informational advantage, and then expressing that into the market for a profit. So you want to be collecting as much information as possible. And it seems like news is a fantastic source of this because there's a constant flow of information that is being filtered and refined by other people so that you get the information that's relevant to you, right? Makes sense. Now, the problem is that not all information is made equal. Remember, the market is competitive. So, if we know that not all information is made equal, then how do we classify news? How do we know whether the information quality that we're receiving is actually to its highest standards? Well, that is the magic question. And what we're going to do is we're going to explore the different information types. So we will be able to figure out whether or not we're actually receiving something that we can use or whether it's something we should disregard. So, and this is the key point of the lecture, there are only 3 different types of information in the whole world. You have leading information, you have coincident information, and you have lagging information. Leading information can classify historical and recent information and gives an indication as to what is happening right now and in the future. Coincident information can classify historical and recent information and gives indications as to what's happening right now, but not in the future. Lagging information can classify past information, but does not give any indication of what's happening right now or in the future. Now, with this already being discovered, you can start to think to yourself and say stuff like, oh, well, okay, I didn't really think about that. The way that we classify information is actually super important to knowing whether or not what we're looking at is actually useful or not. Clearly, and the first couple of things that are going to come to your mind is that leading information is good, lagging information is bad, and coincident information is, not really here or there. But we can go a little bit deeper than that. So, because of market competition that we've previously discussed, we can make the reasonable assumption that all lagging and coincident information is going to be priced into the market over shorter time horizons. This is reasonable because of all the people who are trying to express the same views as you. We're using bad quality information over a very competitive time horizon, so I think that that's very logical. Now, our research has also shown that as you move further out into your time horizons, that the competition is less. Therefore, it would be reasonable to assume that leading and perhaps coincident information will actually be useful here. So it's not only a case of which information is the most useful, but it's also a case of what time horizon you're using this information over as well, which makes it useful. This means, of course, by definition, it's reasonable to assume that lagging information doesn't work over any time horizons either. Now let's talk about price. Price in itself is its own fascinating and very scary phenomenon because price by itself, as we have discussed previously, is actually an indication of everybody's expectations, which is being priced into the market. They are all incentivized to express as much information as possible within the price. This means, by definition, price is actually a leading indicator. And through this, you can start to see why this becomes a little bit of a problem for us, because when we are investing, when we're trading, the expression of our actual activity is to try and predict the price. So you can see, by definition, this is actually going to cause us a problem, because what we're actually trying to do is to actually predict something that is already predicting what the market is. So we're trying to predict something that's already predicting. You can see here that this is a great expression of why investing and trading is such a difficult activity. You're actually trying to get ahead of something which is, by definition, supposed to be one of the things which is furthest ahead of everything else. Of course, this doesn't mean that it's impossible. This just means that it's very difficult. A little bit of effort is not going to work. You need to have a lot of effort in order to overcome these negative pricing effects, in order to get ahead of your competition. So, just to round this out, I want to use a couple of different examples of leading coincident and lagging indicators, just so you can get an idea of what this looks like in the real world. So a couple of my favorite leading indicators are things like macroeconomic forecasting, the ISM PMI, so this is the Institution of Supply Management Purchasing Managers Index. This report is actually something where they go out to companies and they ask purchasing managers what their intentions are for the future, or like what conditions they're seeing on the ground, and then what they intend to do about it in the future, before any of that information actually makes it into economic information. Also, we have supply and demand modeling. It's kind of along the lines of the stock to flow model, which was made by Plan B. However, we know the stock to flow model has been falsified since the time of recording. So it's in principle a good example of looking into the future and seeing how something should behave later on. But of course, this is not a promotion of that particular methodology itself. It's just an example of leading information, something that tells you what will or will probably happen into the future. An easy example of coincident information is technical analysis. So technical analysis is, by definition, coincident. It classifies past information and gives us an indication as to what is happening right now. However, it contains no information of the future. And this is a fact. So I would challenge anybody to fight me on this one. But yes, technical analysis is very much a coincident indicator. Lagging indicators, of course, we've come full circle now, and by far and away, the best lagging indicator is the news. The news is like looking into the rear vision of your car as you're driving down the highway. You can see where you've been, but you have no idea where you're going. So we have to understand that news does not give probabilistic predictions. It does not give mean reversions or trend following signals. By definition, news is being given to you by the 99% of everybody who doesn't know what's going on in the market. These are people who do not have any money and who do not have techniques of their own. People who are too busy making money don't give news to anybody. It's just the nature of the game, right? You're not going to find somebody who's constantly giving you news who actually is profitable, because a person who's obsessed with the news is obsessed with the past. A person who is profitable is obsessed with what's currently happening and what will happen in the future. So when you're looking at news, you're seeing that all of these different price moves are being assigned reasons. The problem is that this trains your mind to think that all price moves are meant to be assigned reasons. Price goes up, price goes down. You see it moving around a lot and you go, what happened? What happened? Keep asking, what happened? Nothing matters and nothing happened. The market is just flows based and it's just moving on the people who are transacting in there. It's not worth your time to keep asking why, because that will just lead you down the path of the news. Of course, asking why is important, but it needs to be within the right context. You need to be looking at coincident and leading data and asking why, not looking at lagging data and asking why. Even if you can find the 1% of usable information from the news that's actually from very high quality sources, it's very likely that that information is being front run as well, and that you won't be able to express that view into the market because so many other people are actually looking at that information as well. So within this context, I believe that looking at data means that you will have the highest chance of success rather than looking at what other people's interpretations of the markets are, because you're relying on people to think and rationalize and spend their time working up these reasons, which of course are inherently backwards looking. Really, the data, the modeling, the forward-looking information is going to be the information that you want. A great example of all of this kind of put together is to think about the FTX fraud drama. The price is collapsing. Bitcoin price goes down 25% in 2 days, and it's an absolute panic. Everyone's freaking out. Everyone's losing money. And you log on the second day and notice that all of the bad shit has happened, and you're like, oh no, holy shit, what happened to FTX? I have to short the market. I have to short now. You're on the third, fourth, fifth day, and the news keeps coming out. And they're like, oh my God, FTX is fucked. FTX, everything bad is happening with FTX. It's really, really bad, guys. Fifth, sixth, seventh day, everything's really bad. And you're like shorting the market, shorting. But you're already too late. All the information that was necessary to short the market at the right time would have been exchange inflow and outflow data on using on-chain analysis. So this way you would have seen people withdrawing their funds from the exchange. You would have seen the decline in their reserves, and you would have been saying to yourself, well, this is a bank run, and bank runs usually end in collapse because they're a self-fulfilling prophecy. And you would have been able to get your capital out of FTX before any of the collapses had ever happened. This is leading information. This is information which tells you what is going to happen. And then there you are, looking at the news, getting freaked out by this constant flow of negativity and going, I need to short the market. It's already happened. It's done. There's no more useful information in the market for you to use. It's a great example of how news is not useful at all. So, in summary, leading information tells you what will happen. Coincident information tells you what is happening. Lagging information tells you what has happened. And be aware of these three. All right, with that being said, thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.